the issue of Brexit and the policy we adopted, it was right to try and bring people together. I admit it. It failed, and I think that meant that people didn't necessarily trust us as a Labour Party because they thought we were going to get Brexit done, and they're frustrated we haven't.
Well, we're going to talk about the Brexit policy in a moment, but let's listen to what the former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair said.
The takeover of the Labour Party by the far left turned it into a glorified protest movement with cult trimmings, utterly incapable of being a credible government. The result has brought shame on us. We let our country down. To go into an election at any time with such a divergence between party and people is unacceptable. To do it at a time of national crisis, when a credible opposition is so essential to the national interest, is unforgivable.
Richard?
Well, of course, I'm always interested in hearing from Tony Blair. I was a member of the Labour Party campaigning for Tony Blair to become Prime Minister. I do think it's an oversimplification, though. He's talking about the hard left. Does he really believe?
It's you. He's talking about you.
Does he really believe that Emily Thornberry, Keir Starmer, Barry Gardiner are the hard left? I mean, that's just completely incorrect.
What about you?
Well, I don't think that hard left is a pejorative term. I'm a socialist from the left of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party is a broad church and should be. But I do think we need to reflect on why we lost 2.5 million votes in the same way as we needed to reflect why, between 1997 and 2010, Labour lost 5 million votes after supporting policies of cuts and policies of war.
But they won 3 elections.
They did, but by the end, we'd lost 5 million votes. We need to get those votes back.
Right, and this is the 4th defeat for Labour, isn't it, since 2010?
Devastating.
Let's talk about Brexit, because you've mentioned it so many times. Did you think it was a good idea to go into the election facing both ways on the issue of Brexit, the single most important issue, arguably, of this election?
I think it was right to try and bring people together. We're a party that represents communities that voted Leave and Remain. It was morally the right thing to do. It felt at the time politically the right thing to do, but it failed. It didn't work because I think the Labour Party underestimated how high up people's priority list.
And you thought it was a good idea and it failed, so you must take responsibility for that.
I think we all must take responsibility. The whole shadow cabinet must take responsibility for it.
Right, so do you agree? So do you agree with Emily Thornberry? She said she raised this at the shadow cabinet, but the loudest voices were the pro-Leave colleagues, who first of all insisted that we should go for an election in the first place. Was that you?
Well, an election was going to happen. The choice before us was a general election was going to happen. You either go into the ring with the Tories up for the fight, or you get dragged into the ring, and that doesn't end well.
Did she, as she has said, warn it would be an act of catastrophic political folly to vote for the election?
Well, I'm not going to breach the confidentiality of shadow cabinet meetings and say what Emily did or didn't say.
Well, no, she said that. She said that's what she did.
Well,
she said to the leader's office it was an act of catastrophic political folly to vote for the election. Was she right?
I don't think she is right on that. However, what I would say is that our policy, it was the right thing to do to attempt to bring people together. However, it failed. But there's no easy solution on this question of Brexit. Others were counselling we became more Remain. Look what happened to the Lib Dems. Their leader lost
But as we've just established, you lost seats in both Remain areas and Leave areas. So I say to you again, you personally argued for a policy promising a second referendum and then not picking a side.
We thought the correct policy to take was to try and bring people together with a credible Leave option and Remain and implement the result of that. We lost 60 seats. It's a tragedy. Of those 60 seats, 50 were in Leave areas. So by adopting going forward a more Remain position isn't the way forward. What we need to do is reflect, understand that Brexit is going to happen on the 31st of January and start trying to push forward an economic and social agenda which serves both people who voted Leave and Remain.
All right, well, let's listen to what Keir Starmer had to say. He's expected to run for the leadership too.